Ladies and gentlemen, we're gathered here to talk about the land of all elite. And 5 years has been a mighty long time, but I'm here to tell you there's something else. The new TV deal. Yes, Tony Khan said it would happen, and he worked day and night. But up in his place, not on Beverly Hills, I'm here to tell you that things may be alright as far as money goes, even though he's the son of a billionaire. But we know that there's a wrestling world that he's gonna dive into. Just like a pile of coke, and then he's gonna go crazy. Thanks, guys. I'm John Wright with my review of AEW Dynamite 5-year anniversary show from the Peterson Event Center in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Let me know your thoughts on this show in the comments, please. Yeah, Prince's estate ought to be basically calling me any time now and saying, please, you're not even worth suing. Just don't ever do that again. Don't. Prince is going to rise from his grave and slap you silly with his guitar. At least we think it's his guitar. But yes, 5 years of AEW Dynamite on Turner Network Television, TNT, TBS, up and down, all around. Come on, defense work. It has been quite the journey. They do have a new television deal. But I do want to say first, they were in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 12,000 seating capacity, and they had around 4,500 to 5,000 people, according to WrestleTix. The crowd made enough noise, but boy, they did sound a little echoey. They need to market their shit better. I do want to mention about the television deal. Look, there have been people poo-pooing it, people saying it wouldn't happen. I felt they would get a new TV deal. I didn't know how big the increase would be. And look, there are some that felt it would be like, well, they would get like, oh, $1 billion. It would be like $1 billion. It would be insane. $1 billion, $2 billion. They're valued so goddamn high. Look, more competition, more viable options for wrestlers to do what they do. Bust their bodies, break their bones, tear their muscles for our entertainment, which they shouldn't have to do, but they do because they love it. And that way, they can get more money for busting their bodies up. And Tony Khan and his dad willing to fund this goddamn thing, so can't fault him there. So $150 million or thereabouts per year and opt out after 3 years, I believe. It's a 4-year deal. Pay-per-views will eventually, I guess, be on Max, apparently. They're getting rid of Rampage, which is smart. Dynamite and Collision are going to stay on TBS and TNT. Okay. Look, so pay-per-views on Max at some point at a discounted price. Look, if they make them $20 for Max subscribers, I'm willing to pay that. I'm kind of getting sick of the $50 a pop because that's not a sustainable method, especially when you look at the state of the television product. They can turn enough of the remaining viewers into pay-per-view buyers, but really, how long is that sustainable? Now, I want the wrestlers to get paid well, and I'm glad they got a television deal. I have knocked AEW for a lot of the shit that they've done, and some justifiably, some is just stuff that I don't like, but I praise a lot of their shit. I've gone to every single show they've had in my state. I won't be going next week because it's in Spokompton, and Washingtonians will understand exactly why, but I will be going to Wrestle Dream in just over a week. In Tacoma, to Compton, as it were. We have some cities that are not in that great a shape, let's just say. But that being said, be happy that they have a television deal. You cannot care for AEW, just like AEW fans cannot care for WWE. Or you could be like me, and you can like aspects of both and knock the bad shit of both, and you can appreciate wrestling and love wrestling, because let me tell you guys, as somebody that lived through the Monday Night Wars, be happy. There were people that loved WWE, there were people that loved WCW, there were people that loved ECW. The ECW fans couldn't carry the company into anything except being bankrupt because Heyman was a terrible businessman, but I digress. This television deal, it's good for the wrestlers, it's good for the crew, the production staff, the agents, all the staffing that they have. That's great. It's not going to fix the booking problems, the television presentation problems, even though there were a couple things I liked on this one. It's not going to fix the issues, and Tony Khan really needs to hire proper people to market his shit, push his shit, because it has gotten to the point now where they are not drawing big enough crowds to justify the buildings they're running. They're running in the Tacoma Dome, and they are set up for about 7,500. The building holds 21,000. Even if you just tried to get the 15,000, you can't even do half of that. But it's not going to fix the problems in the company. Just like WWE is not perfect. Even though they're doing a lot of, big business, they got plenty of problems too. Let's love the aspects of wrestling that we love, and let's just be happy. More viable options exist. So let's get on to it. Right Said Mox were in the back with moody music. I don't know what Shafir said. I don't care. Pac is there. It's kind of like their adorable little munchkin. And yeah, Right Said Mox, because every time I see Claudio and Mox, I just think of Right Said Fred. They're talking about Brian. They're talking about you. I'm sorry, but does any... I'll get to that in a minute, but just this moody music is ridiculous. Mox basically says Brian will get a chance to go out on his shield, on his sword, be buried in his backyard. I don't think anybody wants to go to Aberdeen. I mean, really, Aberdeen. Google where Aberdeen is. Google where I am. I'm in Tulalip. Google that or Marysville, and then Google where Aberdeen is. I've driven to Aberdeen. I've driven through Aberdeen. Seems like many people have driven through Aberdeen. Not a whole lot there. Excalibur, unfortunately, is still here as the lead commentator. He serves no purpose as a lead commentator, and I've tried to give him some slack. I can't. So, Taz apparently was laid out in the parking lot. Apparently he's been having knee issues. So, if that's the case and he needs knee surgery and it fixes and helps his long-term health, all right. But really? So, Will Ospreay is backstage talking to Fletcher. Callis says, hey, we need to talk about last week. You wouldn't let him use the screwdriver. I felt like drinking screwdrivers rather than listening to Don Callis. And I don't drink. Thanks, Don Callis. You made me want to consume alcohol. Takeshita's there thinking, God, when is my contract up so I can go somewhere else and be used better? Ospreay against Ricochet. International Championship. Referee Rick Knox. So nothing's getting enforced because Rick Knox is terrible. They popped at the bell. They were popping for everything. Look, they did flippy shit. They did it well. These are two guys that can do flippy doodah shit very well. I can't knock it. I can't knock the athleticism. I can knock the fact that sometimes they aren't selling shit nearly as much, but it is what it is. The crowd loved it. They fucking loved it. There was at one point, Ospreay hit the barricade face first. I don't know why the fuck he did that. There were two lariats for two. There was an Oz cutter on the apron. That's when we go to break. Why does he stand like a minotaur? Is what Skinny Mysterio, a.k.a. Taryn, said when Ospreay landed on his feet. I saw that tweet later, and God damn it, Taryn. Fucking hilarious. I love Taryn. Awesome. Great, great follow on Twitter. Doesn't give a fuck, and I respect the fuck out of her for it. So, a backslide bomb. I don't think I've seen that lately. And by the way, if my voice sounds a little bit rough, I do apologize. I've been I'm better now mostly, but I've been battling the flu since like late Saturday, early Sunday. So forgive me. But anyway, a pile driver, but just a 2 count. Nice pile driver. He stuffed him. But then the crowd was eating us up. They ate up the Styles Clash near fall. A shooting star for 2. By the way, Excalibur pitched to a DC Comics thing, which I found kind of funny, considering these guys were kind of wrestling like comic book characters or video game characters. But we got 2 Poison Ranas, 1 from each. And then we got the Hidden Blade and then a double pin where Ospreay was laid out, but his shoulders were down, covering Ricochet, so his shoulders were down. And Ricochet also had his arm over hinges, whatever. They did a double pin. The crowd was booing. Apparently, Tony Khan was in Justin's ear. I could say a lot there, but nevertheless, this match must continue. Remember when Tony Khan was taken out by the Bucks and Jack Perry and it led to absolutely nothing? Yeah, led to absolutely nothing. That could have actually meant something for business, despite the fact the Bucks and Jack Perry were involved, but nope. So the match gets restarted. They do the forearm thing, and then Takeshita suddenly jumps in and says, I must, be the person to, take the title. So it causes a DQ. We get asshole chants. I haven't heard that since Vince McMahon, who is a real asshole, by the way. And check out my reviews of the Mr. McMahon series if you want. And yeah, there we go. So, okay, we're getting a 3-way at Wrestle Dream. I'm going to be honest, that may kill the crowd. Not that the crowd won't be into it. I think the crowd energy is going to die down until Danielson comes out. And speaking of dying down, Mercedes was doing a pre-tape. Yay! MVP wants to have her in his group. Why? I have given up on Mercedes. I'm sorry. I just don't get. Camille's just standing there like statuesque, like, this is what I sat on the sidelines for. So the guns were laid out by Hangman Page. And then we get to the learning tree segment. Jericho basically, look, I'm done with Jericho and the fact that he signed to a long-term contract that he didn't earn. He doesn't need the money, and he's not worth the money that Tony Khan's paying him. He hasn't been worth the money since before this deal. But the stuff with, Brian Keith, that's just like a munchkin cowboy, and Big Bill, who means nothing. Ricky Starks is sitting at home with nothing to do. I'm not saying I want him to be part of this Jericho thing, but nevertheless, basically Mark Briscoe comes out, and Jericho says, well, you couldn't beat me, maybe your brother could. And here's the thing. There is a smattering of like, oh, really? No one cared, because no one cares about Jericho except his wife, who was at the January 6th insurrection attempt. Are they so devoid of Ring of Honor talent that they have to have Jericho go after the Ring of Honor title again? This is the best they have for Mark Briscoe? They're going to have this match at pay-per-view. They're going to have this match at Wrestle Dream. How dare you, Tony Khan? How fucking dare you put Jericho? All the bathrooms at Tacoma Dome are going to be full. All due respect to Mark Briscoe, I said, if this is what they're going to do, this and maybe one other match are going to be the piss breaks. I'm sorry, but just god damn it. If he's not going to take this seriously, then why should I? Yeah, so Briscoe did eventually hit him, but just really? Really? This was bad. This was really bad. So then Darby pre-tape, he's around some junk cars. That could be Tacoma. That could be parts of Marysville, to be perfectly honest. But he talked about riding the bus and guys spitting on the back of his head and everything, and then he nearly got stabbed because this guy pulled a switchblade on him. Apparently he was on the set of Grease or The Outsiders, or Warriors come out in Darby play. He's got an open challenge for Wrestle Dream. Here is what's going to happen. Let's just say this whole thing that Moxley's saying is not going to be Shane McMahon. Okay, let's say it's not. I mean, it might be. Who knows? This is what I think is going to happen. Because Mox has been part of, has been associated with Bloodsport before. Who runs Bloodsport? Josh Barnett. Who's from Washington State? Josh Barnett. He's from Ballard, which is not a city you want to walk around. It's not even a city you want to drive around. I like Josh Barnett face off against Claudio last year. Pretty good match. It's going to be Josh Barnett, and Josh Barnett, this is what I'm thinking. I mean, I'm going to talk about it in my predictions when I do them next week. But Josh Barnett's going to face off against Darby. Darby will probably beat him. Josh will shake his hand, and then, that'll be it. And then they're going to do a big old schmoz between Bryan and Mox, and Darby's going to run down, and Barnett's going to run down, and it's like, okay, we're going to do this, and then Barnett's going to be revealed as the leader of this whole thing, and the crowd's going to fart at it, because all due respect to Josh Barnett, who I like, and yeah, he's a Washingtonian guy, no one's going to care. I'm calling it. No one's going to, if it is him, no one's going to care. That being said, it'll probably be Shane, but watch this happen. Watch all that shit happen. Speaking of shit happening, Hangman Page took on Juice Robinson. So they start on the stage. We get belt whipping because of, recent stuff on Collision. He yells at referee Aubrey, who probably could beat the shit out of Hangman Page, if we're being perfectly honest. And yeah, they battled through the crowd. Dynamite's going to be on Tuesday next week. I didn't give a fuck. Why would I care? Why would I care about a Hangman match in 2024? Yeah, they're trying to give his character an edge. I'm sorry, it's not interesting. It's not good. And the belt was being used in the ring, after the match had begun, or when the match had finally began, rather, and just stop making your referees look ineffective. Just seriously, fucking stop it. So Juice takes a bunch of bumps. Didn't he come back from a back injury and he's taking all this shit for Hangman, who is as big as he's ever going to be? Those that like him, like him. I don't hate him, but I'm just muted to him. He does eventually hit a low blow and a buckshot lariat after the referee was out of position, and 1, 2, 3. Then he gets his belt, hangs it around Juice's neck, and tries to hang him over the ropes, and then suddenly Switchblade Jay White makes his return, attacks Hangman to a big pop. I thought they were heels before. I thought the Gang Bang Gang were heels, but nevertheless. Okay, then he spears him through a table that they set up earlier, Juice and Hangman. What was Jay out with? Was he out with an injury? Was it personal he seems to be doing all right. I'm glad he's doing all right. Renee's in the parking lot. Jack Perry pulls up, and him and Shibata. Seriously, Jack Perry and Shibata. God, this is no wonder they aren't drawing in Tacoma. You think Jack fucking Perry's gonna matter one goddamn bit? Shibata and his new brain are gonna have to try to overcome a lot of shit in this. So Brian is fired up and says, "It's I'm gonna keep fighting and I'm gonna beat you, Okada. We're gonna see who the best is." And then Britt, Pittsburgh's own, got a smattering of DMD chance. Not much, though, and she took on the Maitre d', and Excalibur plugged the Hurricane Helene hotline line thing. Text Helene, that's HELENE, to 707070. And I'm just saying that just in case anybody wants to donate. I know people out in those areas. They're thankfully okay, but there are a lot of people who have lost everything in this devastation. It's just absolutely insane. So let's just do what we can. Get the word out. Crews are working overtime. People are trying to pick up the pieces and do what they can to move on with their lives and rebuild their lives. It's absolutely heartbreaking what people have to go through no fault of their own. So he did that during this match. And Did the match matter? I mean, really. Serena is technically sound but uninteresting. Britt, for being with the company since the beginning, has Britt meant less? Has she meant less since turning heel? No. Mariah May is in the front row, someone's champion. You know who you are. No, Mariah, don't get me wrong, very attractive woman. Hard to take your eyes off of her. But it feels like they're kind of spinning their wheels at Mariah as far as champion. And Avalanche Air Raid Crash got a 2 count in a match that really doesn't matter. This is what they need to do with Dynamite. They need to cut down on some of these matches going long. And I'm not just saying the women's matches. If it's justified, have the women's matches go long. Other times, you can actually do 2 women's matches, and you can do some matches that don't go 20-something minutes. They could go 15. You can put some video packages together. You can utilize your time better. But eventually, the Lockjaw won it. And then Serena attacked the knee afterwards, like she'd been attacking before. And then Queen Aminata, Aminata, shows up and attacks Dee because they had history from a match on Collision, I think 2 weeks ago, possibly 3 years ago. Except Collision didn't exist 3 years ago. So then, see, I told you my voice is kind of shot. Wants to know who attacked Taz. I don't care. Do you? Christian then basically, cuts the usual promo. I do want to say I hope Luchasaurus is going to be alright. Apparently he had really severe pneumonia and had to be on oxygen and is going to recover and it's going to be alright. And that's good. That's good. His health takes top priority. Hopefully he can recover. Mariah then talks about Willow. And then here's Willow. And we're getting a pay-per-view match after we get a shoving match. Daniels jumps in. Remember when Daniels was supposed to be the liaison between Tony Khan and announcements? They can't keep this shit straight. So, okay, we're Willow versus Mariah May at the pay-per-view. Short build, but okay. Private Party beat the Iron Savages quickly, called out the Bucks. Here the Bucks show up. And it's probably going to be the Bucks and Private Party on the pay-per-view. Oh, boy. I take it back. That might be the piss break match. And I like Private Party, but do they mean shit? No. And the Bucks don't mean anything. And then Jack Perry shows up. And then Shibata and his new brain show up. Daniels made a match on Rampage. Rampage, the show that's going to be canceled soon. MVP and Nana talk backstage. Nana said, I used to be a wrestler, which I forgot about, but good for him. But he kind of has some complaints. And, MVP says, well, I don't deal with complaints. He does. And here's Shelton Benjamin. Put Shelton against Max Caster and have him beat him flat for the shit that Max Caster tried to pull on Twitter. We don't need to be signing more veterans and everything. Shelton, who could outwork the fuck out of Caster. And I don't know if it was necessarily a work or not, but yeah, I'm starting to think that maybe the inflated ego is going to bite him in the goddamn ass. Shelton, though, he's in his mid-40s and can still wrestle incredibly well. So, a very brief Brody Lee package. Rest in peace, Brody Lee. It's terrible that he got to... Whether his career would have gone on or not, if he had just been able to recover and watch his children grow old. That's really right there what it's all about. And it's terrible the kids have to grow up without a father. And then Kazuchika Okada defended the Continental Championship against Bryan Danielson, who defended his AEW World Championship. And the rule here is the Continental title is only up for the first 20 minutes. And people were confused by this. It's back to the old television championship deals that they did in Crockett and did in other companies. 15 minutes, you can beat the champ, you win the title. Otherwise, the match continues, you can beat him, and you can continue the feud, but haha, you did not win the title. That made sense to me. I don't know why people were confused. Long overrun incoming. I think it was like a 30-minute overrun. Fortunately, my DVR records an hour past anyway. Look, the Nigel stuff is egregious and it's grating on me. They had their match. Settle down. And Nigel's a good talker. This doesn't work. They started slow. They paced it well. We got a diving headbutt. Stop that. Stop doing that. This is why I hope that Bryan Danielson, when he gets his next surgery, actually doesn't come back to the goddamn ring. Spend time with your family. Grow old. Have fun. He doesn't need to beat up his body anymore. And Okada basically takes over. He did the big boot over the barricade, sort of. He could have walked backwards and kicked and somehow managed to make more impact. I know Okada carried New Japan on his back and was beat up for a while, but good God. Good goddamn Christ. That man can't move anymore. I mean, he did a few decent moves. He can have a few flashes. But fucking hell. So, he did the elbow a little bit later. Like when he accidentally broke Bryan's arm. And he didn't mean to. It was an accident. Then we get more action. I didn't hate the match. But just by this point, with some of the stuff I'd seen on the show, it was a good pay-per-view quality match. It wasn't as good as their previous two. And it wasn't going to be, and didn't need to be. But the Continental time limit expired, and then we go to the second break. Kicks, chops, punch, it's all in the mind. Rainmaker, but no cover because he's tired. And Right Said Mox shows up because the Continental rules are okay. You can't, no seconds. But now that time limit's up. Now they can show up. But Right Said Mox members Claudio and, Pac, they show up and a backslide wins it. Boy, they decided to pull a Kerry Von Erich and Ric Flair at the Parade of Champions. A Rainmaker afterwards, and Okada flips them both off, and suddenly Mox and Marina Shafir show up, I think, but we still don't know her, and who is forcing Mox's hand. And then Yuta shows up and has a hammer. And then they get in a skirmish. And it's going to be Yuta and Danielson against Right Said Fred members Pac and Claudio. Okay? That's in Spokane. Spokompton, as it were. So yeah, 5 years of AEW. Look, it has been quite the ride. They should be further along than they are. That much I'm going to say. But nevertheless, let me know your thoughts on the show in the comments. Please like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Retlin. I'll see you soon.